When I set out to try and understand the experience of heartbreak, both my own and more generally, I recorded a lot of my journey as it was unfolding in real time.
But I'm recording this.
Oh, you are? Oh my God, you're really going to do this?
I don't know.
Writing this book has been a deeply personal exploration for me, and I'm grateful you're choosing to listen. It may sound a little different from the audiobooks you're used to hearing. I'll be reading the text, but you'll also hear passages from my audio journal entries and sounds from trips I took in the wilderness. You'll hear conversations with friends.
The only advice I have for you is that we are here for you, so don't do it alone.
And scientists and experts who study heartbreak.
Just because you've been dumped doesn't mean you just can stop attaching. In fact, the brain region that becomes active when you've been dumped, linked with pain, also becomes active when you have tooth pain. So
Why does that seem sort of appropriate?
So it's a very painful experience, and it can last a long time.
You'll even hear me in therapy.
Yeah, just the whole universe of dating is much more dramatic than being in a 20-year marriage.
I figured this is an audiobook. You might as well really hear it. The highs, the lows, the sometimes crooked path to a heart more whole.
Here we go.
I hope you enjoy it. My biggest problem at the moment was the portable toilet. It was just too heavy. It was weighing down the bow of my canoe, which was already loaded with 80 pounds of water and a double-walled cooler filled with fairly ridiculous items like coconut milk, ribeye steaks, and cage-free liquid whole eggs. Like 3 blocks of ice, 10 days worth of water. I have so much food. Like, why did I bring onions? That's me, night 1, alone on the river, making an audio diary. Or really more of an audio rant. Heavy food, huge cooler, takes up 3/4 of the boat. I'd also brought a fetching beach parasol. It was just too much stuff. But the toilet seemed a particular rebuke. Why does something you shit in the desert have to be made of ammunition-grade 20mm steel? It doesn't. And the canoe was small. It just feels really heavy. Like I can move it in a straight line, but if I had to make a move, if there were a rock coming, I could not move it. The ill-conceived toilet was just one of the many small and giant mistakes that led me to this moment, cursing alone in the wilderness. There were the mistakes in my marriage, the cosmic mistake, to my mind, of the divorce, the wrong men I'd fallen for in the year since my separation, the friendships I'd overburdened. All of these were, yes, weighing me down. If I thought about the heavy shit metaphors too long, my head hurt. Most recently, there was the poor decision made because I was possibly having a hot flash to launch this leg of my journey a day early at 7 p.m. in fading light just above a small rapid in a canoe that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Then again, it was August and it was 97 degrees in Green River, Utah. Even a teenage boy would be having a hot flash. Camping at the shadeless town park was an unbearable option. Running a desert river for a month in the height of summer was probably another bad decision. But here I was. An outfitter named Craig had rented me the 15-foot canoe with a broken thwart, splintering gunnels, and the tanker toilet. The boat was the color of lipstick you wear when you're trying too hard. It did, however, match the parasol. Craig dropped me off at the ramp. He laughed and said, "Just remember, if you don't know knots, make lots." He then snapped a picture of me surrounded by all my gear and drove off in his air-conditioned pickup. To be clear, I do know how to tie knots, and I generally know what I'm doing in the wilderness. But my own canoe lay upside down in Washington, D.C., where it petulantly awaited better days, and where until recently I also petulantly lay, often right side down, after my husband decided to leave our 25-year marriage because, among other things, he said he needed to go find his soulmate.
Near the midpoint of my trip, I was aiming for a campsite that my map said had trees. Because the tall cottonwoods are so rare in these canyons, they make camp easy to find. Paddling in, I noticed that across the river a giant slab of rock had flaked off the tall cliff and landed in the shape of a perfect heart, mottled and fractured around the edges. Bird poop dribbled over the top, but it was solid and intact, flashing like a neon sign over the water. I was delighted no one else had claimed the spot. There weren't many groups on the river. I'd seen a few, including some Boy Scouts who passed me earlier. I set up my hammock, meditated, and read C.S. Lewis on grief, written after his wife died. "No one ever told me that grief felt so like fear," he wrote. "I'm not afraid, but the sensation is like being afraid. The same fluttering in the stomach, the same restlessness, the yawning. If I couldn't find some measure of stillness here, I'd never find it. At this modeled heart camp, I was beginning to inhabit the quiet. The heat and the silence, the weight of ancient rock, the very slow river. I was stripped of disguises, clean as a bone. There was no place to hide from my memories. Why was it so hard to confront my marriage? That evening, per a friend's suggestion, I wrote my ex a goodbye letter.
Last time I tried doing this in December, I just sobbed the whole time. But now it's coming more easily.
I thanked him for the many things I'd learned with him and the things we shared and the good ways we'd loved. I wrote about the ways I felt hurt and apologized for the things I'd done wrong.
I wasn't going to read this out loud, but I thought I might as well put it on tape. What I apologize for is not being better at taking care of myself and my moods and not being more open about my fears and needs.
Then, sitting on a rock outcrop high above the river, I burned it in a frying pan. A marriage crisping like a slice of bacon.
Walk down to the river. Goodbye.
Crying, I cast the smoldering ash into the current. One blackened scrap flitted back to me. It contained just one word: sweet. I found myself resisting saying goodbye to the marriage, to him, to the life I'd enjoyed. I opened a notebook. I made a list of all the things I loved about him, and then I wrote down all the things I didn't love about him. What I admired: his apparent ease, his sunniness, his competence, his enthusiasm for adventure. I loved our family unit, that these kind, tall, lanky humans were all my people. And I loved the happy delusion, such a delusion, that we were surrounded by a special force field of safety and fine weather. What I didn't admire. I won't enumerate his many failings here, except to say the biggest, the one I didn't miss at all, was his ability to make me feel that I wasn't quite worthy of him. That was bad enough, but the bigger problem was that I had started believing it. And as long as I still believed it, the worse my life looked alone.